Hugh is touted as Australia's next Formula One racing sensation. At 17, he's taking the racing world by storm, having won a couple of state championships, and now he's based in France with his family. Well, it seems the move is paying off as he gets set to race in Melbourne next year at the F4 Series, the first time ever held before the main race. And Hugh has also been courted by several prominent F1 racing teams and has attracted several major sponsors, and one of them being UK businessman Alexander Rogan. And joining us today from France is Hugh and Alexander Rogan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Now, Hugh, how are you feeling and when do you head back to Melbourne for the big race?
At the moment, I'm feeling quite good. It's just more about keeping shape and, keeping the mental side of things, as sharp as possible before heading off to Melbourne in March. So that's when the Grand Prix is, and that's when I'll be next time in Australia.
Now, you've been based in France for 2 years. How's that been going? Because you and your family made a big shift to further your career, and now we see you racing in the F4 Series, as well as having won those couple of state championships, which has seen you come under the notice of several more prominent F1 racing teams. How far off do you think you are from being snapped up by one of them?
Yeah, so like you said, there is definitely some interest from some of the F1 teams. It's not, you cannot say, how long or how soon I'm going to get chosen or, brought into one of the academies. I think the main idea for me is just to perform as well as possible and do my best. And then from then on, it's just them being able to see me perform. And obviously being on the biggest screen next year in F3 is going to be a lot more attention towards me from those teams. So I think next year is the chance to prove my point, and from then it's their choice.
Great. Now, can you give us the whisper, any team in front of the others, you that have been courting you, and will you have to drink beer out of a shoe?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any other team in front of the others. I think at the end of the day, it's about what they can offer me as well as what I can offer them. So I think any of the 10 teams on the grid is a good option. But yeah,
Great. Now,
whatever comes is what comes. So
yeah, a great position to be in. Now, sponsors have been jumping on board, and there's nothing people like more than a success story. But I see one of Australia's leading cybersecurity companies are also getting behind you, and founder of Platinum High Security Technologies, Alexander Rogan, is also with us. Alexander, what made you want to throw your hat in the ring behind you?
Well, I had a very strange call from Hugh through LinkedIn a couple of years ago. So this young man contacts me completely out of the blue and says, I'm looking for sponsors because I want to go to, win the world championship in Formula One in a few years' time. And that was very unusual. I mean, normally, I get loads of requests on LinkedIn. This was completely original. And it resonated really well because I love cars. I've raced in the past. I also tried to get sponsors, and I failed miserably. I got nobody to put any money up. And I was in a position to do something with Hugh, so timing was right. And I liked his the attitude. He's very ballsy. He's got very strong, stand up and fight mentality. And that came over in the few conversations that we had. And it's been borne out entirely from the time that I've been watching him race, the last 2 years.
Yeah, the confidence of a 17-year-old, no disrespect intended you, the confidence of a 17-year-old, when you actually see it combined with the talent and the ability, it's a great thing to see, isn't it, Alexander?
Oh, it totally is. I mean, close your ears, Hugh. I don't want you to listen to this, otherwise your head's going to get too big. Yeah, but no, look. You can have a conversation. I mean, how many 17-year-olds can you have a conversation with? Very, very few. Yeah. I can talk to him, about the racing, about other things. I think that's quite unusual. I'm quite mature, so he's mature beyond his years, and he's got absolute talent, a real talent. And my wife and I have been following him around Europe. I mean, we get in the car and we jump to and go and follow him in the racetracks and stand there with all the other supporters. And some of the things that we've seen, mind blowing, absolutely fantastic. So it's great. It really is very, very cool to back a winner.
Yeah,
and undoubtedly he is. So my company name on the car, and I feel very proud to be part of that team, this attempt.
Yeah, and back him, you certainly have. You sponsored him for 750K this year, and next year you've thrown another $1 million in. What was the main appeal did Barter Racing give to you?
Well, obviously there's a degree of exposure. Yeah, I mean, it's all about return on investment. So we needed to have a fair degree of confidence that Hugh's going to be at the front of the grid. Yeah, he needs to be on the camera. So he's not let us down with that at all. Second, he needs to be entertaining on the racetrack because he needs to attract attention. And boy, has he actually done that. Yeah, I mean, some of the moves that he's made, some of the plays that he's had to make when he's been fighting off some quite unusual, well, not unusual, it's motorsport, but shenanigans that I've seen on the track. Yeah, where he's been punted off and he's come from the back of the grid. The young man's made more overtaking manoeuvres in a lap or in a race than the rest of the grid combined. That gets attention. So they're talking about him, they're talking about what he's doing, and he's in a car that's branded with my company. So it works. Next year it's going to be very exciting because obviously he's stepping up from F4 into F3. The F3 circuit is an order of magnitude bigger, more important than F4, and the world will be watching him. So with Platinum High Integrity written on the car, we get to bask in some of his glory as well.
Yeah, not to mention Alexander, blokes of our advancing years, shall I say, to get a chance to live vicariously and be part of something like you see it from the beginning all the way through. I can imagine that's a big part of it as well.
It's incredibly exciting, Michael. It really is. I had a discussion with Chris, Hugh's dad, and Hugh, back at the beginning, and we've all got a passion for motorsport, obviously, and what I'd like to do is to be part of this move to get Hugh into F1. He's got the talent. That's it. He's got the talent. I've seen what he's done with cars that aren't as competitive as others. I know why he was the bride at some of these, the championships he's competed in. Put the guy in the right kind of car, give him the right support. He's got all the motivation in the world. He's got all the skill, and he's just getting better and better and better. So it's a good team to be part of. I'm really, really pleased.
Yeah, it's amazing to think here in Victoria he isn't old enough. Sorry to speak about you like you're not there, you, but at 17 you're not even old enough to have your license here in Victoria, and here you are running rings around some of these guys. Now, Alexander, if we can move the focus away from racing for a little bit. Now, as a cybersecurity expert, you'd have to be well aware of the cyber attacks that several of Australia's major companies have suffered recently, with Optus, Medibank, and now even Telstra being the main three. Can you give us some insight why you think it has happened and how?
Oh, I mean, it's why it's happened. I mean, it's been happening for the last 4 or 5 years, but the threat is getting bigger. The bad guys are getting bolder. The gloves have very much come off. I mean, you look at global politics. I mean, I think that the hacking coming out of Russia, I mean, they don't care whether anybody knows about it anymore. Gloves are off because of what's going on in Ukraine. anybody that's part of the opposition, if you like, those are standing up and saying Russia shouldn't be in Ukraine, become a fair target for the Russian hackers. As to why they're being so successful, it's quite simple. It's because the current defenses really aren't up to much. They're not good enough to actually stop the bad guys coming through. And I to a certain extent, I feel sorry for some of these organizations who are hit. In many instances, they're up against nation states. So they're up against trained adversaries. You've got a guy in an accounts department that opens an email, opens an attachment on the email, and the next minute, his company's going down because, he's inadvertently uploaded some ransomware. It's a little bit unfair to expect the accounts clerk to be as good as a trained cybersecurity adversary. I mean, it's not fair. It's not right. Yeah. So, but until recently, I don't think there've been the tools out there to stop the bad guys. Yeah. It's a $2 trillion market. The industry that we're in, $2 trillion this year, and there are very, very few systems out there that will stop what we're seeing going on. I mean, it's good for my business, but it's bad for the rest of the world. Yeah.
Is there a bigger role for governments to play here, Alexander?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and I hope so actually, because we're as a business, we are talking to these people an awful lot now, yeah, because of what's actually going on. What I'm hoping is that government will actually use the power it's got to really try and bring home, the dangers. I mean, you're as a cybersecurity specialist, we will make representation to business, and in many instances, the business will look and see, how much it's going to cost us. What might it cost us if we don't, buy the best security we can buy, and they'll look at the return on investment. You've got the usual stuff in business. You've got egos in the way. You've got preconceived ideas. All of these kind of things that in many instances, stop businesses actually looking after themselves. I think if the government could really push home the message, because nobody else seems to be doing it at the moment, push home that message that it is an incredibly dangerous world out there, then maybe it'll help something like Telstra not get burned again. Yeah, it's a difficult one, Michael.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to jump back to you now. On before the big race here in Melbourne, how good is that going to be in front of your home crowd?
Yeah, it's gonna be definitely an experience for myself. I'm looking forward to it a lot. There's gonna be a bit more pressure, obviously, but that's some pressure that I look forward to, and I feel like we'll make people perform even better if not.
Is it the opening race of the season still?
No, it's the second round. So the first round will be in Bahrain, and then I'll come to Melbourne after that.
So you'll have a good idea who your main competitor will be. Any predictions? Who you're going to be dueling with at the finish line?
Not yet. I know a couple of people who have signed up already, or who have signed, with other teams, and who have been announced. But until we get to the first round, it could be anyone. It's always a 7-way fight for the title. Like last year, I think the guy who came into the round 7th in the championship finished 2nd in the last race. Like it could be anyone.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. So Hugh Barter and Alexander Rogan are really looking forward to the Melbourne Grand Prix, and it's great to, as Alexander said, to see something at the beginning and see where it could go. I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome of this. So thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Michael. Cheers. Bye-bye.